Thanks for checking out this video. For a full list of materials used in this project, head down to the description below and click on Show More. We're going to build our necklace off of a base of right angle weave. So I'm going to cut myself a length of thread, and I'm using black thread because my seed beads, my Miyuki 8-ohs here, are black, so it'll just blend very well together with the black beads. I have my stop bead on here, and I don't need a very long tail. I will be creating a center section of right angle weave first, where I'll add my embellishment, and then I'll add right angle weave up the sides of that center embellishment to create the length of the necklace however long I need to. So first here, we're going to be starting with creating the center section of the necklace. So I've got my stop bead on here. And if you're familiar with right angle weave, you can probably just skip ahead at this point because I'm probably not going to show you anything that you don't already know. But if you want a refresher, or if you've never heard of right angle weave, what we're going to do here is pick up a total of 4 of my 8-oh seed beads. One of them can be the stop bead, so I can just use that stop bead instead of picking up another bead. I've got my 4 beads on here, and then I'm going to pass through that stop bead. If you're using that stop bead as part of your 4, we're going to pick up or pass through that stop bead. And as we do that and we pull both ends, we then have created a little circle or a little square. In the center there, it's going to look like a little square. But we then have this little circle or cross shape, and that is the one section of right angle weave. Because this is the first section, I'm going to reinforce it. I'm going to pass through all 4 beads again. So as I pass through here, I'm going through all the beads, and I'm going to go through that same stop bead again. So that was the first one I went through, and I'm going through it again. And then just to make my life a little easier, I'm going to go through one more bead because I'd rather not be building off of the bead where my extra thread is, where that tail thread is. It's just going to be easier to hold it out of the way if I'm not working right next to it. So I'm going to go one more bead over through my right angle weave section here. So now coming out of my 8-oh, I'm going to pick up 3 beads, and I'm going to pass through that 8-oh again. So I'm picking up 3 beads, and I'm just going to pull those 3 beads tight, and this is now my second right angle weave section. It's pretty loose right now because I don't have anything else holding it in place, but if I give my thread a little tug, it looks nice and tight. So now I'm going to go through the next 2 8-ohs in this section, and I'm working away from my tail thread here. So I'm always going to be working in a direction away from my tail thread, pass through the next 2 seed beads, and where this should bring you, if I lay this out, is it should bring me to the point where my thread is coming out of this 8-oh seed bead at the very, very end of the project. I'm going to repeat this step again, so I'm picking up 3 beads, going through that 8-oh there at the very end, passing through the next 2 seed beads, so through 1 seed bead and through 2 seed beads. And once I've gone through 2 seed beads, my thread will be coming out of this seed bead here at the end, the farthest seed bead away from my stop bead, or from my tail thread here, my tail thread and my stop bead. I'm going to continue doing a right angle weave pattern for about 4 or 5 inches. It's going to depend on how much of the embellishment you want in front, but I'm going to continue here for about 4 inches because I think that's probably all that I'm going to need here. So if you have one of these handy rulers or a measuring tape, you'll be able to gauge how far you go with your right angle weave as you work. I'm going to work this for another 4 inches or another 3.5. Looks like I've already got about a 1/2 inch done. So I'm going to continue to work this for another 3.5 inches, and then I'll show you how to move on and do some of the embellishment. I've worked my right angle weave for about 4 inches, and so now I'm ready to add the embellishment or the fringe that's going to hang below it here. When I pick up my right angle weave here, you're going to notice that it's not going to look perfect, and that's okay. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect. As we work with it and add the fringe, it's going to write itself out and it's going to do what we need it to do. The important thing is that you want to make sure that you can tell the difference between the beads that are on the sides, your eightos that are on the sides, and your eightos that are running down the center, because we want to work with those eightos that are coming out of the sides and all along the bottom. So we're going to work on one side, this side here, if we want to call this the bottom. So we're just going to work on one side of the right angle weave here. So it's just important that you can identify that. So to start here with the embellishment, I'm going to take my needle and thread and pass through the first of one of those seed beads that's hanging out on the side. So if I lay it like this, now I flipped this, so don't get confused here, I flipped it. My thread here, I went through this seed bead here. It's one of the seed beads that's sticking out to the side in my first segment. So each segment is going to have 2 seed beads that sit across from each other, kind of like the little arms sticking out to the side, and then each segment is going to have 2 seed beads that run straight down the center of your right angle weave, kind of like the spine or the backbone of the project. So we're just concerned with the little arms right now, and we want to stick to the arms on one side only. So coming out of one of those seed beads, those arm seed beads, I'm going to pick up 1 or 2, I'll pick up one of my 11-os, and then I'll pick up one of my beads that I want to start working with for my fringe. I'll go ahead and start here with one of my flowers. So I'll just pick up one flower and let this fall down to the rest of the right angle weave here. And then I need one more seed bead, and I'm just using my 11, so I've actually put my 11-os, or I put my 8-os away for right now. I pick up one more of my 11s, and then I go back up through my flower bead here, or whatever bead you're going to use for that fringe. Give it a little pull so that you get rid of any of the slack. I'm going to pick up another 11-o, and then I'm going to pass through the next seed bead that is that arm sort of seed bead of the right angle weave. So I'm going through one 8-o, picking up an 11-o. I'm picking up whatever kind of bead I want to add for my fringe. In this case, it's my one of my little trumpet flowers. And I'm picking up a seed bead at the end as a stop bead, going back up only through my flower, and then I'm picking up another 11-o, and then passing through the next 8-o, working my way down my right angle weave. So I'm going to do this again. And as I do this, I'm just going to mix up the pattern that I use for my fringe. And that's one reason why I like having a mixture of beads here for my 11-Os. It gives you a lot of visual interest here and gives you a lot more depth to the project rather than just sticking with some black seed beads. So this time I picked up 3 seed beads, three of my 11-Os. And if you have little round beads that you're working with, little round 4, 6, or 8 millimeter round beads, what I like to do with these is I like to treat them almost like little berries. So I like to cover them with the seed beads. I'm going to pass through that bead, this is a 4 millimeter bead, and then I'm going to pick up a series of my 11-Os to just go around that bead. So I think 4 is the number that I need. So I'm going to try 4 here, and if it doesn't work, you're gonna see it. Okay, so 4 looks about right, 5 may be better. So I'm going to try 5. And all I'm doing is I'm picking up a series of 5 seed beads, coming out through the bottom of that round bead. I've got the 5 seed beads on my needle, and then I'm going back around down through the center of that same bead, that same 4 millimeter bead. So I'm just laying those seed beads on the outside of the 4 millimeter bead. And if you do this a number of times, what you're going to do is you're actually going to build up that bead that's on the inside of all of your seed beads. And it's going to give it a bit of like a little berry look, especially since we're using these colors here. And you can do this 5 or 6 times, however many times you want to, until you're satisfied. You don't have to cover the ball completely or the bead completely. It gets a little crowded if you try to cover it too much, but I like to cover them enough so that they do create a little bit of like a berry look to them. So I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to pick up 5 of my seed beads, and you have to be careful as you do this that you're not crossing the loops of seed beads over each other. And now we're going to pick up 1 seed bead. Once we're done adding the loops of seed beads around the outside of our round, we're going to pick up 1 seed bead here that's going to act like a stop bead. And we're going to go through our check glass bead in the center, as well as the seed beads at the top that we picked up before we picked up our check glass bead, and go up through the center of all of those beads and give it a nice tight pull. You want to try to reduce the amount of slack and extra thread that you see. Occasionally that happens even to the best of us. So just be careful as you go along that you're trying to reduce that. And then you're going to pick up a few more seed beads, 11-Os, and then move on to the next 8-O, where you're going to add an embellishment. So each embellishment that we add is going to hang down between 2 of the 8-Os. So I'm going to continue in this fashion and just picking up a series of beads, picking them up and letting them drop at various lengths. So I might try picking up more seed beads at the beginning to let this guy drop a little bit farther, and I'll try some different size round beads, and I'm going to continue working here until I've added 1 bit of fringe, 1 embellishment in between each of my 8-O seed beads. And I'll show you one more here. I'll pick up 5 of my 11-ohs this time, and I'll pick up this tulip bead and let him fall down there. And what I can do here is, instead of picking up 1 seed bead, I can pick up 3 seed beads, but still only go back through the tulip bead. And as you go back through that tulip bead, give it a nice tight pull, and you'll create a little series of 3 seed beads here at the bottom, so it'll elongate and just kind of make the end of that tulip a little fancier. And give it a nice tight pull. I want to make sure that I don't have any slack in here. I'm going to go up through, I'm actually going to go up through all but 1 of my beads. So I'm going to go up through 4 and not that 5th one. And I'll pick up a 5th bead here for this other side, and I'll go through the next 8-oh. So what I like to do as I work on this is I like to start with fringes or embellishments that aren't going to hang down too low, and then I like to gradually have them hang down longer, so the fringe hangs down longer in the front and then comes back to a little bit shorter at the end. So I'm going to continue and work on this, and then I will show you what I have done when I've completed my section here. I wanted to show you what my necklace looks like when I got about halfway through. I'm actually a little bit more than halfway through. And you can see that I started making smaller fringes, smaller embellishments, and then as I got closer to the center, I just increased those embellishments, the length of the seed beads that I was picking up before adding the embellishments on. So I'm making those these fringes longer as I get towards the center. And then from the center, working back to the other end, I'll be increasingly making them smaller to sort of mimic this side and for it to make it look even. You can, of course, do something asymmetrical if you're interested in that look, but I wanted to show you what mine looked like at this stage, so you kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like if you do follow what I'm doing here and make it smaller at the ends and then gradually make it larger and longer at the center. I've now completed my center section, which is the section here that's going to have all of the fringe and embellishment on it. This is between 4 and 5 inches. I've made this section here. So what I need to do now is just add length to either side all the way back to the clasp, and then I'll have a completed necklace. I'm going to have to determine, of course, how much length I want to add to each side. My center section here, like I said, is about 4 or 5 inches. So let's just pretend for a moment that it's 5 inches and make it easy math for ourselves. If I wanted to make a 15 or 16 inch necklace, and I know that this is 5 inches, and I add 5 inches to each side, that's going to be a 5-inch section, another 5-inch section, and another 5-inch section. So that'll get me a 15-inch necklace. The clasp will usually take up about an inch. It could be a little bit less than an inch. So all told, it's about a 16-inch necklace, which is roughly the size of a choker. If you want it a little bit longer than that, you're going to add an inch or so to each side. So if I add another inch to each side, I'll get an 18-inch necklace. So once you've decided how long you need to make the necklace and how long you need to make the attached pieces here on the side, going back towards your clasp, you need to decide how you want to do that. Now earlier I said that you can do that by just continuing with the right angle weave. And you certainly can, and that would be a great look. You can also do a simple sort of just stringing. So I'll show you here. I have my thread and my needle coming out of my 8-oh here at the end where I stopped my last fringe. And if I go up through one of those seed beads, it's the very last seed bead there in the project, I can begin by just doing simple stringing. And if I have enough of my seed beads left, I can make a nice little pattern. If I have some of my vintage beads, I can incorporate those as well. So I can start off here with just a simple little pattern, incorporating any of the other beads that I have. And you can see how this would look nice with my fringe hanging down in the front and then incorporating that all the way up the back. I am going to go ahead and do a right angle weave up the back because I want it to be a little bit more substantial and thick. But keep in mind that if you're not interested in doing that, you can just do a simple strung necklace. So to continue with my right angle weave, I'm in position here to add my next 3 beads. So I'm just going to add those 3 beads and pass through the next 2 beads till I'm on that, till I'm coming out of that bead all the way on the end, the very last bead, sort of like the conductor on a train, like that last bead on the project. And then I'm going to pick up another 3 beads, pass through that bead, and continue with the right angle weave. And if you do need that refresher, you can also go back to the beginning of the video where I showed you how to do the right angle weave there as well. So because I am not going to add any more embellishment to this, I may go back through this right angle weave section just one more time to reinforce it. As you could see when we finished our right angle weave section at the beginning, it did look a little bit wonky, and sometimes going back through it twice just helps to straighten everything out and get everything kind of nice and aligned and straight the way it should be. Up and downs are ups and downs, and sides are to the sides. So I'm going to go ahead in this, using this right angle weave, and it likes to flip around on you. And I'm going to continue here with the right angle weave and go up the sides here. I'm going to do 5 inches on one side and 5 inches on the other to get myself a total of about a 15-inch length, and then I'll add the clasp, bringing me to about 16 inches for a choker. I've continued with my right angle weave section here, which is going up the back to my clasp. And I've continued for another 5 or 6 inches here. You're just going to continue with the one side until you reach the length that you need for the finished necklace. And you want to keep in mind that you're going to do the center portion here, and then you're going to do half back to the clasp and then the other half back to the clasp. So whatever that total length is that you need to add to the center section here, you're going to cut it in half. So if you need another 10 inches, you're going to add 5 on each side. So I've got roughly my 5 or 6 inches here to where I want to add my clasp. So to do this, there's multiple different ways that you can add a clasp. I'm going to show you how to add a lobster clasp off of the right angle weave. So off of this very last bead here, this bead that's sticking out at the end, and I have my thread coming through there, I'm going to just pick up one of my wire guards. And when you pick up the wire guard, you're going to go through that little, it's like a little tunnel sort of. So we're going to call it the little tunnel there. You go up through the one side of the wire guard, and you go down through the other side of the wire guard, and making sure that as you pull your thread, the thread sits in that little trough in that U shape there. You don't want your thread hanging out to the side. And now before we go any farther, I'm going to pick up the end of my clasp that I'm going to need on this side of my necklace. So on this side here, I'm picking up my ring, and I'm letting my ring fall in the U of my wire guard. On the other side, I'll be picking up my lobster clasp, And so I'll pick my lobster clasp up through that loop. But on this side here, I'm going to start with adding my ring. So just let that ring, that jump ring, fall into the U of that wire guard. And then we're going to go back through that 8/0 seed bead and give it a pull. And we're going to reinforce this again. So we're going up through one side of the wire guard. We're sort of ignoring that this clasp here. We're ignoring the jump ring. It's going to be a little bit in our way here, but we're just going to ignore it. And we're going to go through the other end of our wire guard and letting that thread sit in the trough up here in the bend in our U of the wire guard. Back through that 8/0 again. And if you want to reinforce it one more time, we're going to just repeat this step. I tend to reinforce quite a lot. Once or you would definitely want to reinforce more than once. And depending on the size of your needle, you may be able to go through more than once. I have a size 10 needle here. If you have a size 12, you'll be able to fit through your wire guard a lot more times. But really, about 3 times through should be plenty, considering that the necklace isn't that heavy. And back through. Oops. Back through that 8/0. Oop, accidentally pulled my wire guard too close to that 8/0. It's kind of clogging that 8/0. So I'll just have to work my way through there. Okay. So now that should have my wire guard centered at the end of that 8/0 on the very end. And as I've attached my wire guard, I picked up that jump ring, so that jump ring is going to be attached as well. So now all I need to do is backtrack a little bit, take my thread through this right angle weave, tie off my ends, and then I will be all set on this side. So I'm going to repeat the same exact steps on the other side here. I'm going to pick up at the end of my segment here. So starting with this 8/0 at the very end of my fringe section, and I'm going to continue with the right angle weave for the same length that I did on the side that I just finished, and attach in the same manner, picking up my wire guard and attaching my lobster clasp. So on this end here, we're just going to pick up the lobster clasp through the wire guard. And then at the end here, we'll be able to attach the ends together. So go ahead and complete your second side, and then we'll see what this looks like when we're all done. I've now completed both sides of my Witches Brew necklace, and so I have both sides done. And what I've done is I've actually added my jump rings to both sides. If you have open jump rings, here's a handy little hint. The open jump rings will make your piece a lot more versatile. So instead of adding the lobster clasp directly to the wire guard, what you can do is add the lobster clasp onto the split ring. This is the jump ring, I'm sorry. The jump ring that is open. So we're just going to open that jump ring and put our lobster clasp onto the jump ring and close it back up. And if you need any help with that, we have tons of tutorials showing you how to open and close jump rings. And this gives you a lot more versatility, because you can then at some point change if you decide that you don't want to use a lobster clasp, or if you give this as a present to somebody and they say, I really prefer a toggle clasp, or I need the length of the whole piece longer. What you can do then is add an extension chain, because you've already set yourself up for that versatility by adding a ring here that can easily be opened and closed to accommodate a length of chain or a different clasp. So just a little tip there, and that is how I chose to end my necklace here, my Witches Brew. And you can see here Lots of fringe, lots of fun, dark but still vibrant, and I'm looking forward to wearing this in the cooler weather, or next time I have a shirt that I want to punch up with some dark vibes. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below and let us know your thoughts. You can also subscribe to our channel to be notified as soon as we have more beading tutorials out that you will enjoy probably just as much as you enjoyed this one.